And I'm actually right on time tonight instead of being late like I usually am. So, good evening. Good evening from beautiful Garden City, Kansas. Let's wait and get some people in here. I'm going to plug in just in case. I'm not sure. What's going to happen there? But it's 7 o'clock and I am on time. So, good evening from Garden City. We'll wait for a few people to come in. Well, good evening. We're in beautiful Garden City, Kansas tonight. It's a nice night, a little chilly. I think it's going to get down to 30s tonight. I like that. I missed the cold weather. We had our first freeze at the house last night, I think. So that's good. I wanted to bring up a couple of topics. We get a few more people in here. I want to bring up a couple of topics from some comments that I got. Welcome. There's some more. Hey, should live stream the road while driving like other people. You know, I guess I should do that. I've heard people say that before. Maybe I'll do it. Now, it may be late at night. You know, I may get bored and start and just fire up a live stream and see who shows up. That's a good idea. I think I'll do that. The problem is, it can get kind of dangerous trying to read people's comments while I'm driving down the road. So if I do it, I probably won't be able to, you know, like read comments. But yeah, I thought about doing it the other night when I was going across Wyoming. Just fire up the live stream, right? It's a good idea. I wanted to bring up a couple of topics. I got a few people in here. I'll bring them up. Somebody left a comment about, and they didn't really word it too good, but I think what they were trying to say was, you can't pull a tanker without hazmat. Yes, you can. There are guys that haul milk, production water. There are guys who haul drilling mud, things like that. You don't need hazmat. Know who Big Rig Travels is, the broadcast history. No, I don't know who that is. I'll be honest with you. I do not watch American drivers on YouTube. I just don't. I never have. You know, I was a year and a half in Alaska running ice roads, and I've never watched an episode of Ice Road Truckers. Never. I met a couple of people who were on the show, but I've never. I think I watched a quarter of an episode one time. I watched guys out of Europe. I watch guys out of Australia when I get a chance. I watch Outback Truckers, which is a TV show in Australia. But should check him out. He's good. I may do that. I'm nothing against him. It's just most of the stuff these American drivers are doing, I do or I've done, and I'm not that into it, you know. But the guys in Australia or the guys in Europe. And I watch some documentaries anyway for guys over in India and places like that, in Africa, and some of the crap they have to go through. It's pretty wild. So yeah, I'll check them out. I used to watch Ned Kelly Ireland, man. If you guys ever watched Ned Kelly over in Ireland, that guy's a legend, bro. He is a legend. I used to watch Steve and Angie Palmer. Of course, Steve's retired. He was another UK driver, and I used to like to watch him. Ride Along Gang is good. Okay. Hey, Rusty. Yeah, I don't watch a lot of American drivers, man. Hey. But I wanted to bring up a couple of topics. Like I said, the guy with the tanker comment. Yes, you can pull a tanker without hazmat. Yeah, you're limited to what you can pull, but you can do it. Evening from Scotland. Good evening. Yes. Man, Scotland. Whew, I'd love to go to Scotland. You know, I have a Scottish last name, but I don't have a lot of Scottish blood in me. I'm half Louisiana French and half Italian with a Scottish last name. Hey, all you guys, man. I appreciate it. Population House Podcast. Hey. Another topic I wanted to bring up is someone asked me how I got involved in hauling explosives out of Canada. Well, I was working for a company. We were doing power only for Carlisle up in Fairbanks, and it just happened kind of accidentally. There was a guy, good morning, from Thailand. Well, good morning. You know what? I need to start checking out some drivers from over there, man. I really do. If you've got any suggestions of some good YouTubers in Thailand who are truck drivers, drop it in the comments. Let me know, because I'd like to start watching. That's what I like to. I like to watch guys from other parts of the world, more so than American drivers, because it just American drivers just don't interest me as much. But guys from other parts of the world, I'm really interested in what you guys go through. South Africa, like I said, Thailand, any Asian areas, Australia, Europe, all of that. That's what I enjoy watching, because it's such a contrast to what we do in some ways. In other ways, it's the same old thing, right? Hurry up and wait at a shipper, things like that. Some of that stuff's the same thing. But anyway, yeah, anybody who has any good YouTubers, especially in other parts of the world, we don't see a lot, on YouTube, drop them in the comments, man. Let me know, and I'll check them out. Somebody sent me one from a guy in Russia who was basically doing the same thing I was doing in Alaska, only he was doing it across the Bering Straits over in Russia, going up into the Arctic and such. And it was pretty interesting. He basically going through the same trials and tribulations, that I was going through. Anyway, how I got involved in the explosives. There's a mine north of Fairbanks called the Fort Knox mine. Do you ever fart in the shower and waft the smell up? You seem like that king of a... No, I don't really. I just took a shower earlier and I didn't do that. No, I try to be a pretty clean guy, so no. Anyway, there's a mine north of Fairbanks called the Fort Knox mine, and of course they use explosives. And they used to make them right there in Fairbanks. It was for Orica, that is the company. And they lost a lot of their employees at the Fairbanks plant, so much so that they couldn't make the explosives anymore. It's almost like a liquid fertilizer is what it was. Obviously, you could use that for explosives. So they had to start getting it from McNeese Lake, which is in southern British Columbia. And so it was me and another guy. We had to do a team operation, because in Canada, if you're hauling explosives, you can't stop. Trucks got to move all the time. I mean, you can stop and get fuel, you can stop and grab something to eat, but you can't stop and take a break. So it had to be a team operation. So we were running down to McNeese Lake, loading explosives, running them back to Fairbanks once a week. And we were making $8,000 a week doing that, man. I mean, we were banking off of that. And then that was last winter before I started running Prudhoe. And then I went home. Well, no, it was last fall. Late summer into fall. Because I went home in November for a couple of weeks. And I came back and it all dried up. Because they were talking about us going down to Nevada, because Orica's got a place in Nevada. Or maybe all the way over to Montreal, which would have really paid good money. But they quit doing it, and everything's kind of dried up, and that's when I went to running the haul road. So I ran the haul road last winter and into the summer, and well, you know the rest. But anyway, so that's how I got into the explosives. It was really quite an accident. I mean, they came to us, me and another guy, and just said, hey, do y'all want to do this? Running an Orica tank down there on a flatbed. And then they would load it, and we'd turn around and go back. It was an easy run, because you run down there empty. They load you and you go back, and I mean, there's nothing to it. Two guys in the truck is pretty quick, So anyway, that's how I did that. And another comment somebody made about Buc-ee's. I get a lot of heat for busting on Buc-ee's, because a lot of people love Buc-ee's, and I get that. And he made the comment, and I partially agree with him. The reason why a lot of places don't like trucks parking there is because, let's face it, a lot of guys leave trash. A lot of guys are just nasty and disgusting, and they leave trash, and they don't care. They throw trash on the ground. They don't care. You know, we've had years of pumping guys out of truck driving schools who really just don't know or don't care. Well, I don't say don't know. You know not to throw trash on the ground. You don't have to be taught that. They just don't care. And so they throw trash on the ground. And so people don't want them parking there. I get that. My issue with Buc-ee's is not just they don't want trucks parking there. I don't care about that. I'll be the first one to tell you, you're not owed a parking space. I get that. But it's their hostility, their open hostility, not only the truck drivers, but when they opened a place in Ohio had money set apart. They had money set aside for truck parking. The state had set aside money for someone to come in to build a truck stop or something with truck parking so they could increase truck parking. Buc-ee's went up there and they wanted that money because they wanted to build a Buc-ee's up there. So they went up there and told them, yeah, we're going to build a big travel center, right? Knowing that they never have any intention of letting a truck park on their lot. And so they got that subsidy money that was supposed to be set aside for truck drivers, and they used it to build a Buc-ee's. And you know, they don't let trucks park on Buc-ee's. So that's my problem with Buc-ee's. It's not the fact they don't let trucks park. I really care less. You know, I heard guys complaining one time about how they don't want truck drivers in Cracker Barrel because they won't let trucks park there. No, dude, have you seen a Cracker Barrel parking lot? It's packed with cars. Why, I don't know. The food's not that great, but you know, to each his own. That's why they don't let you park there. There's no room for you to park there, man. Besides the fact, when they pour that asphalt for a parking lot, they only pour it so thick if it's made for cars. So that's another reason. So I don't have a problem with businesses saying no trucks. That's not my point with Buc-ee's. My point with Buc-ee's is hostile to truck drivers, right? We all saw that story about the husband and wife who brought just their truck, not a trailer, just their truck there to buy some stuff. And they were shopping in there. They had an armful of stuff, go to the counter with the stuff. The guy says, "Is that your truck out there?" And they said, "Yes." And he said, "Get out." Basically, get out. They wouldn't even let them buy anything in there. Now, should they have parked there? Probably not. Even though they didn't have a trailer, and the driver tried to argue, "Well, we're no bigger than an RV." I understand that, but it says no trucks. I wouldn't. Any place that says no trucks, I don't park. 2 reasons. 1, they don't want me there. That's fine. 2, it's private property. If they say no trucks, no truck. Don't park there. And I get that, but you know, they could have checked them out and said, "Hey, man, next time don't park here because you know we got a policy." No, they wouldn't even let them buy anything. So that's fine. I don't spend my money at Buc-ee's. I can go the rest of my life without going to Buc-ee's. So that's my Buc-ee's thing. It's not that they don't let trucks park there. It's that they're openly hostile to truck drivers, and the fact that they basically stole that money in Ohio that was supposed to be set aside for trucks, and you know, use it to build a Buc-ee's. When Buc-ee's got plenty of money, man. They don't need subsidies. They don't need government subsidies to build a truck stop. Let me try turning this light on, see if that's a little better. It's kind of bright. I don't know. Anyway, Sir's my man warmed. I don't know what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're saying, but I appreciate you watching. Anyway, that's too bright. I wonder if I could cover that. Are you German? No, I'm not German. Oh, somebody asking him if he's German. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Are you German? I'm going to turn that back off. And I'm going to try something else, guys. Hold on a second. That's a little more light. I don't know. Anyway, I shouldn't do this at night, I guess. But, Any other questions anyone has about what I'm doing, what I do, what's going on? You can understand me. German is the same language pool. I can understand what you said there, yeah. Oh, he asked what's about what? I don't know what you're asking. I'm sorry, man. I'm a little thick. Oh, you German. That's what's about. The parking. Oh, what's about the parking? Well, oh, I was talking about Buc-ee's and not letting trucks park. Buc-ee's is a big convenience store. What's the problem with parking? You mean with truck parking? The problem is we don't have enough in this country for trucks. There's a severe parking shortage. Gas station. Yeah, well, Buc-ee's is a giant gas station, basically. Yes, that's what it is. But people go gaga over it. I don't know why. You know what's funny? Hey, hi, Robert. Thank you for the videos, and I hope you're having a great evening. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You're very welcome for the videos. I feel like I've let a lot of people down not being in Alaska anymore, and I'm sorry about that. But I had some issues I have to deal with at home, and I had to get home. I really wanted to wait till next spring, but I've said that 1,000 times before. Here in Europe, truckers use tachographs. I've seen that. No, we use a tablet for our electronic logs. We used to use paper, but now it's all electronic. We use a tab. Some guys just use their phone. It goes on their phone. It's basically just a graph, and you put in on duty, off duty, or it'll fire up automatically when the truck moves if it's connected via Wi-Fi to the truck, like that. So yeah, I've often said that tacho cards may end up becoming the norm over here. It's kind of good in a way because, well, hold on, let me read the comments here. I have seen reviews on the internet where you can get there, everything very American. If you ever pass through Columbus, and have the time, let me know, Robert. I'll meet you for lunch sometime. Okay, well, I'll let you know. I don't get over east of the Mississippi too much. Every once in a while, we do go to Ohio sometimes. There's a couple of meat packing houses over there. I think closer to Cincinnati, but who knows? I may get over there, I haven't been over there since I've been back, but all right, yeah. I like Ohio now. Back in the day, drivers hated Ohio because they had a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit for trucks. But once they got rid of that years ago, man, Ohio's great. The roads are decent for the Midwest. I mean, the roads, let's face it, the roads in the Midwest aren't that great, but, Ohio's not too bad. So, yeah, I have no problem with Ohio. If you're a trucker, what is your opinion on Europe trucks? The cabins look totally... Yeah, well, I get that, because the roads are much more narrow. There's a lot of tight places European trucks have to go in. American roads are generally bigger, wider turns. There are some areas in the Northeast that are older, that are tighter, but American trucks, Australian trucks, Canadian trucks, Mexican trucks tend to be bigger because we can be bigger because we just have more room. But I tell you what, you look at those European trucks, and they do a lot with the little bit of room they have. It's really amazing. I heard that Scania is going to try to get into the U.S. truck market. I'm really going to be interested to see how that goes, because I know Scania is like top of the line, right? That's the Kenworth or Peterbilt of European trucks, man. It's Scania, right? And Scania's already over here with marine engines and such, but they don't do trucks over here. But that's my understanding. They're going to start trying to get more into the U.S. truck market, and that would be great. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I like the European trucks. They are much different. The thing about European trucks is they have a higher horsepower. They got trucks over there that are running 700 horse, but they have a lower torque than American trucks. Even though all the European trucks are governed at 55 or something. See here, there's no. You can run a truck however fast the company wants you to run it. It just depends, but but they have higher horsepower over there. True, it's like a capsule hotels in Japan. The space is used very effectively. Yes. True. They do a little, or they do a lot with a little. Exactly. Yeah. Mercedes. Well, Mercedes used to own Freightliner. I don't know if they still do or not. We used to have a lot of Mercedes straight trucks over here. The smaller trucks. And they were very efficient trucks. Mercedes makes a great diesel engine. So, Mercedes has been over here for a long time in trucks. They have used a lot of trucks. Did you get that device that makes noise when you have traffic? No, I haven't got it removed yet. I haven't talked to safety yet. I know how to deal with that on the down low. Let's just say aluminum tape works really well, and I'll leave it at that because it's an annoyance. It does nothing for safety. I can see if there's somebody in front of me. I don't need that thing going on. You know what it does? It annoys you. When you're in a large city and you cannot get away from people, you cannot. If you're 3 car lengths back and that thing's still beeping, you know what's going to happen? If you have 3 car lengths between you and the car in front of you, you're going to have at least 2 cars jump between you. We all know that, right? It's going to happen. People see an open space on the freeway and they see that as an invitation. Even if they don't need to be there, they're going to go there because that's just what they do. That thing has got to be. It is very irritating because it won't stop. It does nothing for safety. All it does is irritate your driver. And really, they need to be outlawed. And it really makes my anxiety go up here. After being in the more quiet Alaska wilderness, where trucks don't make a bunch of beeping noises, it's really great. Greetings from Illinois. My wife's family's from Rockford. I mean, she's a Texan, but her family's from Rockford, Illinois. Well, Rockford, and she's got family up in Wisconsin as well. So we do stuff down in Rochelle, Illinois. There's a Tyson IBP plant we do down in Rochelle, Illinois. So I get over there. When did you start driving a truck? 30 plus years ago I started, so the early 90s. Well, actually legally. You live in East Central Illinois. Oh, okay, all right. Not in the Chicago area then, but over like toward Danville or somewhere like in that area. I used to go over there a lot back in the day. I started as a teenager driving for a guy, and then I didn't have a license to drive, but I did it. And actually I started driving. I'm lying to you. Actually, I started when I was 16 years old. Here's a fun fact about me. I quit high school and went to work on a traveling circus. And that's where I started driving a truck. I had no idea what I was doing. He had like a 1969 white. Remember white trucks? And I started driving that. Yeah, 30 minutes north of Danville. Okay. I know where you're at. I know the area. And I went back and got my GED. I did go back and get my GED. But I wanted some adventure, like I always do, even when I was 16. Town called Hoopeston. Okay, all right. Fair enough. I wanted some adventure. So when I was 16, I quit school and went to work for a traveling circus. And I started driving a 1969 white with a Detroit diesel in it. And you could hear that thing coming 5 miles down the road. Man, it was loud. And it was uncomfortable. It had no amenities. Air conditioner was rolling the windows down. How many hours are you allowed to drive continuously without stopping, having a break? Not entirely clear on the question. Okay. Well, you have 11 hours before you have to take a 10-hour break in the lower 48. But they've got this stupid rule that I call it, where you're supposed to take a 30-minute break before you hit 8 hours. So you can go 8 hours, then you have to take a 30-minute break. Then you can go another 3 hours. So 11 hours altogether. Then you got to take a 10-hour break. Now, it's not nearly as complicated as the European guys have to deal with, but the 30-minute break don't get me started on that, man. Well, you can, because I'll talk about it. It's ridiculous. It's unneeded. It's unnecessary. It clogs up the fuel islands. And how do they know if you don't take a break? Well, because it won't be on your electronic logs. You got to show off duty on your electronic logs, or on duty, not driving. That's how they do it. Sounds like Big Brother. It is Big Brothers. It is Big Brother. Did the hours of service change when they moved from paper, or was the system the same under the paper? Okay. When I started driving, it was 10 hours driving and an 8 hour, then you had to take an 8 hour break. And the 14-hour clock stopped, and there was no 30-minute break. It was much simpler. It was much safer. It was safer because it was paper logs, so we basically did what we wanted. And I've argued this with drivers, and I'll go to my grave arguing it with drivers. We drove when we wanted to drive. We slept when we were tired. Accident rates were dropping. And anyway, they changed the law when we still had paper logs to 11 hours driving, 10 hours off. And they made it to where the 14-hour clock didn't stop. So if you started driving at 5 a.m. when you went on duty, your 14-hour clock kept going. Doesn't matter if you went off duty or not. Doesn't matter. Your 14-hour clock still kept ticking away. So now you have to drive, you have to hurry up. Hope you don't get held up anywhere. Haul butt wherever you're going. Non-stop. No more stopping. I think that's one thing that killed a lot of mom and pop truck stop restaurants. Drivers couldn't stop and eat a meal anymore because your 14-hour clock didn't stop. You had to keep going. Now they change it to where if you go in a sleeper for 2 hours, that stops the clock. But you don't always sit somewhere for 2 hours. You might sit somewhere for an hour and a quarter, or an hour and a half, and that eats into your time over time. So you can't always depend on that. Thank you. You have been talking about 70 hours and 34-hour break in recent videos. Okay. Well, you can work 70 hours in 8 days. Once you hit your 70 hours, then you have to take a 34-hour break. You take a 34-hour break, boom, you get 70 hours back. Now that's great. It wasn't like that when I started driving. When I started driving, there was no 34-hour break. So when you hit your 70 hours, and I'm going to get confusing here, you could recap. In other words, your hours after the 8th day previous 8 days would start to drop off. So if I worked 9 hours 8 days ago, that 9 hours would then drop off of my 70, if that makes sense. I know it's confusing, but you don't have to do that anymore. Now you can take a 34-hour restart. It's 36 hours in Canada, by the way. And then you get your 70. That's why I couldn't go all the way to Fort Worth, Texas with this load. I'd stop here in Garden City because I was down to like an hour and a half when I got here. So I'll be leaving. I've got a load going over to Enid, Oklahoma. I'll pick it up in about 8 hours and 16 minutes if it's ready. And take that to Enid because that's when I'll get my 34 hours back. And then next week I'm going home. So, but that's it kind of in a nutshell. The 14-hour clock not stopping is, to me, again, it's not safe. You're making drivers rush when they shouldn't have to rush. And I think they should get rid of that. That's a clear thing. Well, I'm glad it's clear for you, because if someone was trying to explain it to me and I didn't know, I'd be totally confused. So you're smarter than I am, because I'm really terrible at explaining stuff like that. But yeah, during the paper log days, they did change it to that before we went electronic. Now, when we first went electronic logs, you could manipulate the electronic log just as well as you could paper. I could be going down the road and click off duty, take a 30-minute break while I'm driving, and then after the 30 minutes go back on duty, you know, and just keep driving. We used to do that all the time, you know. But because it's a waste, it clogs up the truck stops, man. You got guys sitting on the fuel islands trying to take a 30-minute break. I remember paper logs. I drove for CRA. Oh, okay. Drove for CRA England back in the day. All right. Yeah, paper logs were great, man. We were better drivers, and I still think we were safer drivers. I'm sorry, I do. Anybody wants to argue with me about that, that's fine. But I lived it, and I'm telling you. Did we push ourselves sometimes? Yes. But you got guys out here now that are driving off duty, right? And you can say, well, that's the illegals. And it's true, it is, but there are other people doing it as well. But what's ridiculous about the 14, if they would stop the 14-hour clock, get rid of the 30-minute break, I'm fine. I can live with the rest. I can live with the rest. You know, and I get it. Senator Duffy, or Secretary Duffy's dealing with the illegal driver thing right now, and I totally get that. But we really need to do something about these hours of service rules, because they promote dangerous driving. And I mentioned that to somebody on Facebook today, because now you have to pretty much drive nonstop. It's much more stressful down here than it was in Alaska, where the 14-hour clock stops, or in Canada, where the 14-hour clock stops. It's much more stressful because you're always looking at that 14-hour clock. You're sitting somewhere getting loaded, and you can go off duty. You can show a little unloading time and then go off duty. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters on your 70, but your 14-hour clock is still ticking away. And it's like, you're off duty. I should not lose time while I'm off duty. And then once you get so far down, it starts eating into your driving time. So now you're losing driving time and you're sitting there. Make that make sense? How does that make sense? Why am I losing driving time when I'm sitting here doing nothing? Now, like I said, after 2 hours, you can go in a sleeper, and after 2 hours, it stops. But you may not be there for 2 hours. So what do you do then? You know. So then you got to stop somewhere and get fuel. That's 15 to 20 minutes or whatever. Or you got to scale the truck. You know, you got to do it. It's just crazy. And I tried to stop in that Love's in Salt Lake. Anybody ever go to that Love's in Salt Lake City? Forget it. Forget it. In the middle of the day, that thing was packed. So I went over to the Sapp Brothers, where I used to park back in the day. And I paid $15 to park, man, because I'm like, you know, Salt Lake City's gotten crazy. You know, the traffic, they've got every freeway tore up, but I get it, it's growing. You know, a lot of Californians moving there. But anyway, to finish my story, yeah, I started driving basically when I was 16 years old for a traveling circus. And I left that. I went back, got my diploma, I got my GED. I got a Class A license when I turned 21, and then the CDL they were already talking about the CDL, and so I went and got my CDL, and I've been driving ever since. What are your thoughts on paid parking? Okay, I'm a free market capitalist, man. If you've got private property and you want to charge a park, I can't stop you, and I shouldn't be able to stop you. It's your property. You can do what you want. What I don't like is this parking club that's come out, where they take what was once free parking and they turn it into paid parking and they get the money. I don't like that. I do not like that one bit. If something's free parking and the property owner was going to keep it free parking, and then the parking club comes in and says, well, let us take over this parking spot and we're going to charge, I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. But as far as like a truck stop, man, it's private property. I know it sucks sometimes. You know, Pilot Flying J, TA's got into that. Love's hasn't yet, and I don't know if they ever will. But I also get the fact that a lot of drivers, and I'm just as guilty of it, pull in a truck stop, park, go to bed, get up next day, take off, don't spend a dime. I get it. You know, you go into a place like, say, the TA's out in Ontario, California, or the TA in Dallas, or the Petro in Atlanta. You go in there and you get fuel, and it's free for 24 hours. That's great, you know. So that's my opinion on paid parking. I'm not a fan of it, but at the same time, it's private property, and they can do it. They want to charge for you to park there, they can charge for you to park. I mean, that's just how it is. A lot of companies will reimburse you for that. You know, if you say, look, man, I had to park somewhere to make this delivery, you know, a lot of companies will reimburse you. Could you explain the function of the weigh stations along the interstates? Well, let's see. Most of us have pre-pass, which is a transponder in the truck. It sits on the windshield, and you'll get either a green light or a red light if the scale's open. If you get a red light, you have to pull in. If you get a green light, you don't. And I don't know how deep you want me to get into this. I guess if you're not a truck driver, you don't know how it works. You get off the road, you go off into the weigh station, and there's a platform scale. Some of them are just axle scales where you just roll over one axle at a time, and then as you roll over the scale, it's reading your weight. You know, usually do 3 to 5 miles an hour. It's reading your weight, and if your axles are right and your gross weight is right, then most of the time you can go on. Sometimes they'll pull you and do an inspection, just depends. Some of them have a full-length platform scale. We pull all the way on, and they either make you stop, like Oklahoma, I think will make you stop and sit there and sweat it out and wait and see what they're going to do. And in some of them, you just keep rolling, and it's giving them their weight inside. And that's basically how it works. If it's closed, you usually get a green light, or you get nothing. A lot of guys complain that a lot of owner-operators will complain that it's charging them for getting that green light. It doesn't. Pre-pass will tell you that if you get a green light at a closed scale, you don't get charged for that. Hello from Canada. Well, hello from Kansas. Are there robbery when you park? You know what? It's funny you say that. Me and a guy was talking about that today. The Americold down in Amarillo, Texas. He was talking about how what they'll do is they'll unhook your airlines. If you're in the truck sleeping, if you're parked on the street in front of that Americold, they'll unhook your airlines. And then you get up in the morning, and then, you know, you go to release your brakes, and, you know, your trailer brakes don't release because your airline's not hooked up. So you get out of the truck to check it, and then they rob you. So I've never been robbed, but it happens in certain areas. I'll just say I carry protection, and I'll leave it at that. But I did have a guy try to rob something out of the back of my trailer one time when I was sitting at the produce market in Dallas years ago. And I went back there with my protection and basically caught the guy stepping out of the back of my trailer with I think it was a box of bell peppers or something I picked up in California. And I basically told him, hey, look, man, your life's not worth that box of bell peppers. He agreed, put the bell peppers back, and we departed ways. So it does happen. How often do people inspecting trucks before operating safe? You know, it depends. Usually you'll get what they call a CVSA sticker on your truck and your trailer. And I think that's good. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think that's good for 30 days, the CVSA stickers. And so if you get inspected and everything looks good, they'll give you a sticker for your truck and one for your trailer. And if you go through a weigh station again, they'll see that sticker, and generally they'll leave you alone, you know, for 30 days. Ever been to Hunts Point Meat Market? One time, years ago. Funny story about New York. Yeah, Hunts Point sucks, yeah. But funny story about New York. I was going through New York one time on my way to Long Island. And they had across the Verrazano Bridge into Brooklyn. And they had the road shut down overnight. They were doing overnight construction. They had the freeway shut down. So it says detour, and you had to take this exit. And then that was it. They didn't tell you where to go after that. You know? So they just expect everybody to know where they're going, right? So I'd keep going, and I would stop at the red lights, and I noticed every time I stopped at a red light, people would kind of start congregating. So I quit stopping at red lights at that point. I just started blowing them. And I think I told this story once, and pardon me for repeating myself, but I saw a couple of UPS trucks, but they were flatbeds, and they had those, what they called igloos on them. And they call them that because they're big white boxes, but they slide into the cargo planes. They put packages in them, slide them to the cargo plane. So I knew these guys were probably going to JFK Airport. So I followed them because I knew if I got to JFK Airport, I could get on the Van Wyck Expressway, go north to the Long Island Expressway, and get the hell out. And that's basically what I did there. But that was kind of scary for a minute. But is there an age limit for trucking? 21 to get a CDL. Some places are trying to lower that to 18 for just interstate, for just in the state trucking or intrastate. Or interstate. I'm sorry. In other words, you can't cross the state lines. But I don't think that's passed. Correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody can correct me. But I don't think that's passed. I think you still have to be 21 to get a CDL license. And I think it should probably stay 21. The driver shortage thing is not, I know a lot of people saying it is a thing. Some people saying it's not a thing. Driver turnover is a thing. And I'm bad about it. I kind of freelance. You know, I've worked here twice before, where I'm at now. And I do kind of freelance. I'll go here and there, simply because a lot of times people call me. You know, I had a guy's call me the other day from Alaska wanting me to come back up there, another company. But I'm probably going to stick it out here. You know, these are good people. But I don't know if there's really a driver shortage or not. The ATA says there is, but the ATA, don't get me, we need to do a video on the ATA one day, because I'm not a fan of the ATA, American Trucking Association. So at 21 is the limit right now. So, but they are trying to lower that to 18. Will they ever do it? I don't know. Should they do it? I don't know. I started, like I said, when I was 16, and I didn't even have a license. So, but that was a different time. You know, that was a different era. The trucks are easier to drive now than they were before. That's obvious. So most of these big companies, I guess, are running automatics now, my understanding. They're much more comfortable. Like I said, I started driving a 1969 white. There's nothing comfortable about that. I owned an 85 Freightliner with an 18-speed, 4.25 cat, and you know, it was quite a try. It did have air conditioning though. You froze to death in that thing in the winter. It had so many gaps in it, you know, but it did have air conditioning. When you was in Alaska, was Carlisle still running? I remember that. Oh yeah. I pulled a lot of loads for. That's what I was talking about, the explosive loads. That was for Carlisle. I was working for another company, but we were doing Carlisle freight. So yeah, I worked out of the Carlisle yard in Fairbanks. Yeah, they're still, Carlisle's big. They still have their yard in Houston. They still have a place in Tacoma, Washington. They still got their Fairbanks and Anchorage yard, their Kenai yard in Alaska. You see a ton of those guys going to Prudhoe and back. So yeah, they've got their terminal there in Dead Horse. Yep. Carlisle's still running, man. They're a big conglomeration. You know, they're very corporate. I thought about going to work directly for Carlisle, but man, they're very corporate, and I just didn't want to get into it. The other day you asked about illegal immigrants trucking. How is this possible that they get a work permit? I don't know, but I don't think they're going to be getting one anytime soon. I think they're really going to start cracking down on that. I personally Here's my stance on it. No one asked, but I'll tell you. If you want to come over here and drive a truck and you know English and you can pass a CDL test with English proficiency, I have no problem with it. The problem is some of these guys can't. And my wife, who was a tattoo artist, she's working in a truck stop at the moment in town where we live. You know, she tells me stories because we're right on I-40 about these guys just putting their phone in their face because they can't speak English. How are you reading road signs? And that's why these guys end up parking out in a field or something, because their GPS tells them to go here and there's no place to go and they end up out in a field or something. And it's not fair to them either, right? It's not. I could imagine if I were in India, if somebody dropped me in India tomorrow and said, here's a truck, here's a load, go somewhere. And they're telling me all this in their language and I can't speak it. I'd be terrified. I would be utterly terrified. And I can just imagine, you know, that's why I can get mad at these guys, and I do, but in another way I kind of feel bad for them, you know, because I can just imagine what they're going through. Who is this tool? Who is this tool? Am I a tool? Who am I a tool for? I don't understand who I'm a tool for. I'm definitely not a tool for the government, but our companies don't have basic standards hiring these people. No, some of them don't. And that's the thing. We have to get background checked, man. I know what you have to go through to be a truck driver in this country, and they're not getting it. They're not getting it. That's my point. These companies also need to be prosecuted because they know these guys are illegal. Or in Canada, Indians also did not know how to inspect trucks properly, but they just find a shortcut. Yeah, you know, doing a pre-trip inspection is basically common sense. These guys should know what they're doing. I'm not going to comment on whether they're more, well, I think some of them do care and some of them just don't. Because if you look at the way they drive in India and the things they do in India, they just do whatever they want, basically. If someone put you in India, just call tech support. Yeah, they're all over there, the tech support guys, right? Yeah. I wonder if they have to call Americans when they need tech support, you know. And if they like, I cannot understand you, you're speaking English, you know. I don't know. Yeah, call tech support. Majority of them don't care. You know, you could be right. I've watched documentaries on India and the way that people drive over there, and it's pretty wild, man. It is really wild how they drive over there. And it's a culture, and that's what I try to say to people, and they think I'm being racist. I'm not trying to be racist about it, but it is a cultural thing. Culturally, they don't seem to take driving as seriously. Now, I can also say that about a lot of Americans today. We're losing, as we seem to get less and less mature as a people in the Western world, our driving habits are getting worse. And I've noticed that. And I don't know what you do about that. You know, I saw somebody make a ridiculous statement about, we just need more trains and we can get rid of the trucks. And I'm like, and I left a comment. I try not to be too nasty about it, but I said, do you realize how many thousands of miles of extra track we would need? Because you'd have to put a train track behind every single business in America, which means you would have tracks crisscrossing every road. There would be gridlock on the highways because they'd be crisscrossing streets all over town with trains stopped while they're dropping freight off at different businesses. It would be a nightmare. It would be a nightmare. You can't do that. That wouldn't work. I was laughing from the guy in Florida driving trucks is scared to be deported to India. Yeah, well, it's going to happen, bro. If you're not legal, it's going to happen. I remember when I was driving, there was cell phones. There wasn't yeah, when I started, there wasn't either. You know what's funny? Then you remember, right? You'd go to work for a company, they'd give you a truck and a trailer, have you go pick up a load and hope you call them once a day. And that's what we did, right? $1 million load, man. $100,000 truck and whatever for the trailer. Yeah, just call us every day, right? And if they really needed you, they'd turn your fuel card off. So you'd have to call them, you know, on the payphone on the wall in the truck stop, right? That was how we did it. And you know what? We survived. Now, I do remember getting a T-check number. I worked for a company, we used to get a T-check number before we left Dallas going to California. And there was a couple of times they'd hire a guy, give him a T-check number for $600, and he'd end up at the crack house. He'd never leave Dallas. They'd be looking for him for a couple of days. Somebody'd finally spot the truck. They'd call the cops. Yeah, he's at the crack house. So it did happen. But yeah, most of the time, though, yeah, they didn't know where we were. I remember when I was driving, our truckers having a personal insurance to cover the money when the accident is their fault. Well, it's insurance like anybody else has insurance. So the company has insurance. It's very high, very high. That's why they try to put all this safety crap in these trucks. Now, I do like the outward-facing cameras because that saved me one time from somebody tried to claim I did something that I didn't do. And I had my own camera before we got cameras. When I was working for this company before, we didn't used to have cameras. Now they've got the outward-facing cameras. But yeah, they have insurance. They pay a lot of money in insurance, a lot of money. Here's a problem with trucking company with their insurance. A lot of times, a car will hit a truck and it's not the truck driver's fault, and the insurance company will just pay the car off, just shut them up, just go away money. You know what that does? That makes them go out there and drive even worse around trucks. I know a guy who's literally rear-ended by a car, and the insurance company said, yeah, it's their fault, but we're going to pay them off so she'll shut up. So what do you think she's going to do next time? She's going to drive crazy around trucks because she thinks, I can do whatever I want. I'll get paid for it, even if it's my fault. So it just makes our job that much harder when they do that. They've gotten rid of so many railroads, and yeah, that's true. There's a lot of rail lines that shut down over the years. You know, we don't do passenger rail over here anymore except for Amtrak, and Amtrak has to be subsidized by the government because it doesn't make money. Now, here's the thing about Amtrak, before you feel sorry for them, because people don't ride the train. Amtrak is, I watched the whole thing on that too on YouTube. Amtrak is routinely late. So say you're leaving New York and you want to go to LA on an Amtrak. You may get to Chicago and be late. So where you miss that connecting train to LA. So what do? They put you on a bus and they bus you to Denver or somewhere where you can catch up to that train going to LA. I'm sorry, I didn't pay to ride the train to have to ride the bus. So passenger rail service in the U.S. sucks, and that's why people don't ride it, and that's why it died in this country. Basically, it's not practical for the U.S. It's practical for Europe because it's easier, because you can go through 3 or 4 countries in a day in Europe, you know, whereas the United States you can take 3 or 4 days to drive across, you know, the country. So passenger rail service just doesn't work over here. They still use freight service, obviously, but yeah, there's a lot of tracks that have been pulled up over the years in this country. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we just don't have rail service, or passenger rail service like we used to. How is the trucker community? Are they close, friendship, or more? You know, in Alaska, truck drivers watch out for each other. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that if you break down in Alaska, you can die within minutes, depending on if the truck's still running or not. So people watch out for each other. Also, if you're up on the haul road, there's no road service. Like when my engine fan went out going up Mackey Hill, I barely got stopped, and there was an Alaska West driver coming the other way that stopped. And he had an extra piece of airline because my engine fan went out, and that's all run off air now. So if you disconnect that airline and pinch it off, your engine fan will just run continuously, it was still summertime, so, you know, that was okay. So we stuck a piece of airline in the hole, pinched it off, and I was able to keep going. you know. In the lower 48, guys just don't give a damn about each other anymore. They really don't. They just don't care. I'm not going to say they're necessarily rivals, but some guys are just like real quick to cut your throat. Figuratively, I mean. I don't mean literally. They just don't care. You know, like parking on the fuel island, sitting on the fuel island. They see trucks stacking up behind them. They don't care. They'll get out of their truck. They will get out of their truck, see you back there behind them, and walk away. They won't pull up. They won't go park. They will look right dead at you, turn around and walk into that truck stop. They don't give two F's about you. And unfortunately, that's the culture right now. Safe travels, Robert. You have a good night too. I appreciate it. Appreciate you watching. So unfortunately, that's the way it is down here now. It's not what it used to be. Trucking isn't what it used to be. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was just saying. Yeah, it's not what it used to be. And a lot of guys complain, well, nobody listens to the CB radio anymore. And that's true. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't much either down here. The reason why? There's nothing but trash on it. Guys playing their stereos, guys just running their head needlessly, guys with these giant base stations just drowning everybody else out, just talking trash. So you can't get any information on it anymore. Now up in Alaska you still could. People didn't just sit there. You could run the CB and you didn't hear anybody just talk. If somebody was saying something on there, they were actually saying something that needed to be said. You know, if you wanted to just have a conversation, you'd get on what they call the big radio, the VHF radio, and there's all kind of different channels on there you can listen. And so you'd have your CB going, you'd have your VHF radio going. Your VHF radio, if you were running with somebody, you would have a conversation on that, and you'd keep your CB on to listen to other things. I followed your video. You are driving miles after miles, no really civilization. I thought driving those roads must be not that comfortable. The haul road in Alaska is not comfortable in the summer. No, it's a bumpy mess. Of course, in the lower 48, the roads are better, depending on what state you're in. So it is night and day. But yeah, the haul road in the summertime is not comfortable. It is very, very bad. Excuse me, if you go back and watch my videos from then, yeah, it was pretty rough. Pretty rough road. But the camaraderie between drivers today, it's not good. Not in the lower 48. I can't speak much for Canada. I know Canada has a lot of foreign drivers now. I would imagine over in eastern Canada, Ontario and such, it's probably not very good. A lot of the guys in Alberta and British Columbia and Yukon's probably a bit better, especially the oil field guys in Alberta and such. You know, the Northwest Territories was the only place in Western Canada I didn't get to go. And I wanted to go to the Northwest Territories just to say I went there. But I never got a chance to. It's true there's a lot of foreign drivers in Canada. Yeah. I saw them. I saw a lot of Canadian drivers driving oil field trucks. But as far as freight trucks, there was a lot of foreign guys. Also, I noticed at Tim Hortons. I used to stop at a Tim Hortons in Fort Nelson, British Columbia, and I would stop at a Tim Hortons in Prince George, British Columbia, and that's all foreign guys running those places as well, and the Petro-Canadas. Now, some are very nice people, don't get me wrong, but I noticed that majority of them are Indian. Yeah, I noticed a lot of Indian guys driving, and I don't know what that's about, man. I don't know why that is with Canada, but I did notice that you very rarely. Here's the problem with a lot of those guys. Yesterday, you talked about stay healthy when I see videos where roads are bad. How's your back? You know, my back is better down here than it was in Alaska. Man, my tailbone just killed me in Alaska. Oh my God. It got to where I would have to, like, I'd be driving and I'd have to sit up in the seat like this for a minute, you know, and then sit back down. Down here, it's not nearly as bad because the roads are better. So yeah, but a lot of guys do end up with back problems. These trucks are a lot more comfortable than they used to be. I can imagine guys in the 50s and 60s sitting on bench seats, you know. Oh my God, spring ride trucks and bench seats. Oh my God, those guys must have been, whew. I feel safe how you drive than Indians. Well, I appreciate that. And I'm not saying all those guys are bad drivers. Please, don't get me wrong. But I know the culture, and you see the way they drive in India, and it is different, you know. And same thing in Russia, and I'll bust on the Russians too. We get Russian drivers come over here. You know, we had that guy from Serbia who killed those people in Indiana. You know, it's just a different culture, man. It's just totally different. Same thing, like you go to Mexico. You know, my wife went to Tijuana a while back to have a surgery, and she was talking about looking outside the motel window and watching the people drive and how it gave her anxiety. Just looking out the window, watching how they were driving down there. She goes, it's just like a free-for-all. I said, yeah, it's just a different culture, man. What do you like about trucking? I used to look, I got into trucking for the freedom of it. Not having someone looking over my shoulder. I spent the majority of my life driving like that. I had to use my brains. You know, as like I was saying earlier, we didn't have cell phones. They turned you loose with a truck, trailer, and a load and said, call us every day. And that was it. That was it. If you had a problem, you had to be somewhere where you could get to a phone and call and get somebody out there to help you if you couldn't fix it yourself. We carried tools back then, you know. And I like that freedom. And that's what's being taken away. These guys are being micromanaged so much now that they don't know how to think for themselves anymore. I'm sorry, when you treat a grown man or woman like a child, they're going to start acting like a child. They're going to start throwing trash on the ground. They're going to start blocking the fuel line. They're going to start calling you for every little thing. You know, hey, I'm just wondering if I should make this right turn or this left turn because my GPS, you know, doesn't know which way to go. You're going to get that because you treat them like that. If anyone wants to come to the country for college or universities and stuff, sure. However, none of them studied in school. Well, I'm not gonna, I mean, I don't know, you know, it's you have to go through a school to get a CDL now. And that's another thing. How did these guys get a CDL? You have to go through a school now. That's, if you're an American, you have to go through a school to get a CDL now. You can't just go down to the DMV and say, yeah, I want to take the CDL test. You have to go through a school. So how did they do that? See, those are the questions that we need to be asking. The government, the companies these guys are working for, how did these guys come over here? Did they go through an accredited school to get their CDL? And how did they get that CDL not knowing English? How did they do any of that without knowing English? How did they get hired? How did they get a background check? How did they pass a background check if they're illegal? They obviously didn't do a background check. These are the questions that need to be answered. And unfortunately, and I've always said this, unfortunately, 3 people have to die sometimes before things get changed. People either have to die or it's got to cost somebody a lot of money. Unfortunately, that's human nature. 3 out of 16 questions and failed English is madness. You're right. Do you remember when companies started putting Qualcomms in trucks? Yeah. In the 90s, in the early 90s, they started that as when I first started driving, the company I was working for was experimenting with them. We were still having to call in, but they were experimenting with the Qualcomm things. And I haven't seen a Qualcomm in years. I don't know if are they still putting those in trucks? Everything now comes through tablets or texts. I get everything through McLeod software on my tablet, and they send me a text. So that's how we do it now, which is actually easier, I think, than the whole Qualcomm thing. I just don't get it that illegal immigrants I don't get it either, are given CDLs. I don't get it either. Make it make sense. It shouldn't. But this has been going on. Gavin Newsom gave out 62,000 CDLs to illegal immigrants. And it's not just Gavin Newsom. Like I said, a governor in Texas, Greg Abbott, supposed to be this big conservative Republican, was doing the same thing until it got unpopular. Now all of a sudden he's all pro, fixing this. Whatever, Greg. It is what it is. Arkansas. There are videos of the Arkansas State Police letting these guys go. Now they're cracking down, probably because they got a phone call from the Fed saying, unless you want to lose your federal funding like California, your guys better start cracking down. Now all of a sudden they're cracking down on them. Now they're starting to crack down on them. So I don't get it either. That's my whole point. These questions need to be answered. Don't let this go. We can't. That's why when people get on here or get on my comments and say, oh, you just complain about everything. Yes, I do. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. You cannot let this stuff go, man. You can't. Like the Epstein files. I know that's different. It's not the trucking industry, but I'm just saying. There's certain things that we just cannot let go. And this is one of them. Because that's what a lot of these politicians in the States especially want. They want this to fade away and become a backstory, and eventually something else is going to happen, right? There's going to be some, I don't know, a story about a cute kitten or something, and we're all going to forget. No, I'm not going to forget. You can't let it go. You can't. So I'm not going to let it go. I won't. I refuse to. There are some things that, I think that we're all put on this earth for a reason. And as much as I rail against the trucking industry, I've been doing it for over 30 years. And this is how I've made my money. I've made a lot of money in this business, and I've been flat broke in this business. But this is how I make my money. And I will not let this go. I repeatedly put the word enforcement in comments. Well, yeah, there needs to be enforcement. You're right about that. There's no doubt about it. The thing is, we kind of saw this happening in the late 90s, but no one ever really, I don't know, we just didn't think about it, I guess. And now it's front and center. But it's gone on for so long. Here, in Canada, I don't know about Europe, probably in Europe as well. I can't speak for Australia, but yeah, it's come to a hit. And unfortunately, like everything else, like I said, people have to die before something gets done, because we're always reactive instead of proactive. Because, we don't want to hurt the immigrants' feelings. Look, man, we got to worry about this, our country. Canada's got to worry about their country. India's got to worry about their country. Japan, got such, etc. We have a certain set of standards that everyone should have to live up to get a CDL in this country. I remember 46 years ago, I spent lots of time in the U.S. I felt so welcome. Strange people helped me. Is that friendly culture still present? Yes, I believe it is. Yes, that friendly culture is still here. We've become a bit more isolated, I guess, over the years. But I'd like to think that, look, I'm willing to help anybody. Like I said, you want to come over here and you learn the language and you want to work, God bless you. Do it legally, learn the language, and do the best job you can. And I'm all for you, man. I'm all for you. Worried about their country first, or we suffer. Any country first, I mean. You should worry about your own country first. Look, if you're president of the United States, you're president of the United States. that means you worry about your citizens first. That's not racist. That's the way it's supposed to be. If the Japanese prime minister, who they just got a new prime minister, and my understanding is she's cracking down on illegal immigration over there. If she says, hey, I'm putting Japan first because I'm the prime minister of Japan, that's what she should do, right? That's what the prime minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, should be doing, but he's not. And his people are dying because of it. And if he said tomorrow, I'm kicking all the illegal immigrants out, is that racist? No, he's the prime minister of the UK. He's not the prime minister of the world. Our president is not the president of the world. But people are so used to the U.S. getting involved in everything that goes on in the world that they think that our president should be president of the world. He shouldn't be. No matter who it is, by the way. I don't care if it's Trump, Biden. I don't care who it is. They're president of the United States. That's how common sense is. Yeah, it is common sense. But we don't have common sense anymore, man. Because we're all worried about people's feelings and how they perceive us and how they perceive it. Look, man, we have to worry about the United States. And like I said, Canada. Let's worry about Canada. That doesn't mean you can't have relationships with those countries. And it doesn't mean that you can't let people come in who come in legally and they learn the language and they say, I want to come over here and do this and whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we have to worry about the United States, and other countries have to worry about their countries. And, you know, they had someone from Scotland on there earlier. I don't know if you're still on, but Scotland had a chance to vote to separate themselves from the rest of the UK, and they voted to stay. You know, that's y'all's business. I'm sure William Wallace is rolling in his grave over that. Like, what? You know, but, you know, it's whatever your best interest is. I don't know, man. It's been over an hour. I guess I should probably go ahead and end this now. I enjoyed it. I really appreciate people showing up. I will do one from the road, going down the road. I've gotten that request several times. I will do it. I probably won't be able to answer too many questions because I'll be driving, you know, and I'm going to try not to, you know, do anything dangerous. But good night. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm not against immigration if you want to come to work. Go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want to come here to work, hey man, go for it. God bless you. Really. I may want to go to another country one day and work. I'd still love to go to Australia and drive, but I would do it legally, obviously. And I wouldn't, of course, I also know the language. It makes it easier. Thank you for doing this feed, Robert. Thank you. I appreciate that. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Any questions that you have, you know, save them up, and you know, I'll try to answer them while I'm on here. You know, I did my last 34-hour break, and I'll probably do another one before, because next week I'm going home. Stay late. Thank you. I'm going home next weekend. I have a funeral. I have a brother-in-law who passed away, so I probably won't. I might do a live stream. I don't know, but I'm going to try to do one from the road. I'm leaving early in the morning and going to Oklahoma. Maybe I'll do one then. It's just it's only like 4.5 hours over from here to Enid. So we do a lot of short runs, but I still end up with 3,500 to 4,000 miles a week because so much drop and hook, you know. So anyway, I'm going to end this now. I'm going to call the wife. I'm going to go for a bit of a walk, try to get a little exercise, and then try to get a few hours sleep, because I've got a little over 7.5 hours for my time is up. And then I'm going to run over to the plant. It's only about 5 miles from here, over in Holcomb, Kansas, and see if my load is ready. And I appreciate you watching. I really do appreciate you guys more than you know. I really do. This whole YouTube thing has been great. I'd love to get to 2,000 subscribers. Share my videos out there. I'd like to educate people on what's going on in this industry and what we can do to make it better, and what we can do to just make ourselves look better, be more professional, help mentor the young drivers who are coming up. on the do's and don'ts. I think a lot of guys do things just because they don't know any better. Like I said, you know not to throw trash on the ground. I'm sorry. No one has to teach you that. But there are other things that, you know, in this business that I think guys need to learn. And we need to make trucking great again, right? So, again, thanks for watching. Stay safe. Peace out. We'll see you next time.